Is the human body a kind of heat engine? Why or why not? So, why it might be, I think, can be related to two parts of the definition of a heat engine. For one thing, the human body does produce work, it's capable of doing that. Human bodies also tend to produce thermal energy that is released into an environment at a lower temperature. So, two of the parts of the definition of a heat engine are clearly met by the human body. The tricky part is the first part here about taking in thermal energy at a higher temperature. Humans don't really literally like lie on a hotbed of coals instead of eating in order to take in the energy that we need in order to produce work and then also produce thermal energy at lower temperatures, right? We eat food to do that, and that goes through our whole metabolism, really, right? But it's broken down, it goes into cellular respiration. So that's a little more complicated and maybe more difficult to reconcile with the first part of the definition of a heat engine. It turns out there is a way to do it, though. If one associates the amount of energy per degree of freedom in the chemical energy, essentially in glucose and maybe the other compounds that are converted into glucose in the body before it goes into cellular respiration. And then if you look at that amount of energy and you compare that with the amount of energy per degree of freedom stipulated by the kinetic theory of gases, or also you could say by the equipartition theorem, it becomes possible based on that to calculate a theoretical high temperature. I think one way of describing that more conceptually, what that high temperature represents, is it represents the highest possible or highest conceivable temperature that could be achieved if all of the chemical energy in the food that we eat is combusted and doesn't dissipate in any way into any other nearby material. And that, what I described there, might be a little bit rough, but that's one way of thinking about it. So in other words, there is this theoretical way of establishing what that high temperature should be. So if you believe that, now we've met the third, or really the first here, condition for a heat engine, and that makes the human body a kind of heat engine. There's maybe a little bit of debate as to whether I didn't stretch things a little bit too much for meeting that first condition. So the answer here says yes, from a certain point of view. The body takes in fuel that is, quote, burned in a certain sense, and that's the part I described at length a moment ago, and it definitely produces waste heat.